So how do you find them? So firstly, try and be clear on what you're actually looking for, which I know sounds pretty obvious. But if you have an idea about what you're actually looking for, then it's easier to find it. Because saying I'll do anything, it actually then becomes quite hard to actually search for anything, because you know, what search criteria do you put into your jobs board? So try and be clear on what you want. So what are your priorities? How much money do you need to earn? Where do you want to work? Or maybe that's going to be remotely at the moment. But just try and have some clarity about what you're looking for, what skills you want to use. Have you identified an area that is a growth area that you think, okay, I want to go there? So do a little bit of research and think about what skills are they looking for? What have I already got? Do I perhaps need to do an online course in something at the moment just to help bolster my skills in a particular area? Do I know which area I want to get in, but I'm not really that experienced? Could I do a bit of volunteering for a charity or a business? That might be tricky at the moment, but it's actually a good way to gain some valuable experience, to know whether or not it's an area you want to go in, but also to add that to your CV, that you've actually got some tangible experience in that particular area.
And sometimes it's always a way to get a foot in the door as well, isn't it? They might not have an opportunity available, but if you offer yourself,
absolutely,
which you are, and then that sometimes overcomes that horrible barrier where you're coming from a different industry or sector, and people think, well, you've always committed yourself to retail or working in the airline industry. Why would we be interested in you in the health sector, for example?
Yeah.
You can show your level of commitment and your passion. And we all have times in our lives where, you know, we've committed to a given path, but change comes along, whether we willingly or unwillingly.
Yeah.
And we adopt a new direction in our life, and it's
absolutely
skills that lend themselves to that particular industry.
Yeah, definitely. And if you think about your CV, then if you are thinking about doing something different or needing to, have a section on your CV which is your skills, so your key skills on page 1. So rather than, well, why is this person who's always worked in retail, why are they applying for a healthcare job? The first thing that the recruiter sees when they pick up the CV is actually all of the skills that they've got that are transferable into the healthcare setting. So think about that when you are doing your CVs, and if you are looking for something slightly different, think about telling the recruiter that these are my skills, and not just a list of skills. So anybody could write a list of skills, but actually problem solving. I have to deal with difficult customers every day in my job as a retail supervisor. So kind of giving them a little bit of information about how you've developed that skill as well.
And would you recommend that instead of having one bog standard CV that people send out, they kind of tailor their CV to a particular job role that they're applying to?
Absolutely. And always tailor your CV to a job. So don't just send out a bog standard CV, really tweak it, look at what they're asking for, and check on your CV. Have you ticked all of their boxes? Have you shown them that you've got the skills and the experience that they're looking for? And it might be that you might want to have 2 versions of your CV. Maybe you want one for the industry that you're in at the moment, and then one for something slightly different, which you would still tweak, but you might want to have 2 kind of master versions, if that makes sense.
And would you have a manual, or would you say, you know, keep it short and simple? I mean, how long is a good CV? Or
2 pages.
2 pages, no more than 2 pages.
No more than 2 pages, except in certain industries. So the IT industry is slightly different in that respect, particularly where there are a lot of contractors in that space, so who've worked on lots of different projects. So they tend to be slightly more lengthy and more technical. But in general, we say no more than 2 pages for your CV.
Is is there anything else we can do to make ourselves look outstanding, like have a LinkedIn page or anything else,
Yes,
do you
yeah.
think?
So definitely, I think a lot of people focus their job search solely on jobs boards, like Indeed, which is probably the most famous one, which is fine, and that's absolutely a valid part of a job search strategy. But don't just rely on jobs boards. 60 to 80% of jobs are never advertised. They're not going to make their way onto the jobs board. So the way you find those jobs that aren't being advertised is to start expanding where you're looking. So yes, definitely get yourself a LinkedIn profile if you haven't got one, and populate it. And once you've amended your CV, maybe you could use that as a basis to populate your LinkedIn profile, and then start making connections on LinkedIn with people in the industries that you want to get into. In the company, you might have a list of companies, and I'd recommend it. Have a list of companies that you think I'd really like to work there, and then go and stalk them on LinkedIn. Go and find people to connect with that work at those companies, and then you've got direct access to them. Engage with people on LinkedIn. So let's say you really wanted to work for a particular company, you've connected with the recruiter who works there, make a comment on posts that she or he are putting out there. So you start to engage. So LinkedIn, it's a professional networking site, but it's also a social media site. So it is important to be social. So I'd say start increasing your connections on LinkedIn in the areas that you want to get into, and start engaging with people on LinkedIn as well. Twitter, somewhere else to go to. Again, if you've got some target companies, go and follow them on Twitter, and they often will advertise roles on Twitter as well.